Hey, I'm Taylor Dorsett, and this is the Professional Technical Interviewee. Technical interviews are hard, and every company does them differently. On this show, I interview engineering leaders to see what they look for in technical candidates, and then they perform a real technical interview with me. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. Excited to do the technical portion here. So, Connor, you've sent me a Code Sandbox link, which I've got up, and I'm at your mercy. Ball's on your court, ready to do this challenge.
Sure. So the directions for the challenge are in the README. So I'll just have you open that up if you don't mind, and then give it a read. Before you get started with that, I just want to say that for this challenge, we're not looking for you to meet any sort of like necessarily all the requirements. We just really want to understand how you think and work through this process together. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us, or you can open up a new tab. You can Google anything that you want. Open up documentation or whatever you need. So yeah, I'll give you some time to read through this, and then let me know if you have questions and when you're ready.
Great. I see donuts, which is very exciting. Fire cake versus do right was a regular debate when I was running an office in Chicago. So let me read through this. LaunchPad Lab's annual onsite is fast approaching. The team needs to make an important decision where to order donuts from. Very important. To choose appropriate vendor, we need to be able to quickly and easily compare relevant information. Okay, that makes sense. Requirement, the assignment is to create a simple dashboard that helps our team make the right breakfast choice using the LPL proprietary donut API, LaunchPad Lab, proprietary donut API for the following restaurants. Do right, donut, fire cakes, great. Please choose 3 attributes that you would believe are the most relevant pieces of information from each donut shop. To make the comparison easier, we should be able to sort this information. That would be nice. In order to get this moving quickly with features relevant, we've included a mocked API response in the data dictionary up here. Okay, great. Please use this information in lieu of acting with the live endpoint. Okay, great. We're not worried about design for this challenge. Feel free to keep the style pretty basic. Awesome. Criteria for this time we evaluated on your ability to communicate and work collaboratively with another developer. Okay, great. Overall thought process, extensibility of the code base, and use of semantic HTML. Cool. So as I understand this, basically I want to display some type of model with at least 3 attributes. I'm just throwing things out there that come off the top of mind, like price, number of flavors, and amount of donuts in stock, something like that. And we'll see what we might specifically want to pull from these data files. But something like that, we want to display that and then have it sortable. So we can click and sort based off of some hierarchy, which would help us make decisions on which donuts we want. Is there anything I'm missing, or does that make sense to you?
No, you nailed it. Before we start, we'll work on this, for somewhere to 30 to 40 minutes, and I'll try and stop you at a reasonable stopping point that makes sense. And then we'll ask you a few questions about the challenge itself, and then we'll leave some time at the end for you to ask us any questions as well.
Cool. So I'm just going to type from my own notes. Display a dashboard with 3 values that I select based on what would make these good or preferred donut choices. I always ask people not to grade me on my spelling. I have a VS Code extension that corrects all my spelling for me, so it won't go into live production. Cool. Don't need to worry too much about styling. Great. And we don't actually have a live endpoint. It's just basing off of what these would look like. Is that correct?
That's correct. You can think of these as mock responses to like a show endpoint.
Got it. So instead of calling a GET request, I should just be pulling the data from these.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Can I open up multiple Nice. Can I do this side by? Okay, top bottom, that works. Just seeing if these are all. I guess what I would first want to know is how similar are these? Am I going to be doing a lot of parsing of information or not? To try to make number of locations be the same as number of places or something like that. They seem pretty similar, which is nice. Founders, flavors, gluten-free vegan, wholes, gluten-free vegan. Okay. Can I be correct in assuming these are basically the same? These models are going to look basically the same.
Yeah, they're the exact same.
Okay, great. So glancing at these quickly, the things that stand out on what we might want. Let's see. It's quickly going to have too many tabs open, which would be on par for my average day-to-day. Average rating might be something we want. I'm not necessarily going to rank these right away. So average rating, flavors. I'm going to say flavors, but more in the sense that like I'd probably you call dot length on this to get the number of flavors. Maybe we care about that. I'm just gonna say dot length for clarity's sake. I don't really care about number of locations, years founded, founders. I Let me be controversial here. I don't care about gluten free and vegan, but maybe some people would. That's not in my top three category. But don't judge me if it is in yours. I would say the trade off is, or for this sake, I'm saying we don't have any gluten free or vegan people. But if we did, that would be important to us. They're not going to be in my top three though here.
My wife has celiacs, but I won't tell her. Won't tell her you said that.
We'll leave her out of the feedback session for my interview.
Yeah, she
I
doesn't
don't
work at
care.
LaunchPad.
Yeah, great. Okay, a lot of these things I don't care about. Again, some of the stuff might be relevant if this was more robust or we were doing different things, but I'm not seeing a lot of this. I saw like delivery or curbside pickup. I'm also making the assumption that we have someone who's agreed to go pick these up in the morning. Unless I shouldn't be making that assumption, someone has the capacity of doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a
Um,
fair assumption.
Great. Max batch size. That's what I was thinking when I was saying something like we want to know quantity. Like we don't want to get there and there be 5 donuts left, right? And we're trying to get donuts for the whole office. Is max batch size meaning they're going to make 48 of each flavor? Am I understanding that correctly? Or they could make up to 48 of each flavor, something like that?
It's how much they put in the oven at a time.
Got it. Okay.
So it's not
Um,
related to the amount that you can order for a particular flavor.
so not related to that. Interesting. There doesn't seem to be like this may not be like a live updating endpoint with some type of quantity. That's kind of what I was looking for. Um, can I assume that we could order ahead of time? So if we say we need 50 donuts of this type, or of these various types, then those would be there.
Yeah, stock and inventory you can exclude from this exercise. It's a good
Cool.
question.
Great. Then price might be the last one. Having handled expenses and expense sheets in the past, and also been the person who just picks stuff up, I assume the company's going to pay for it. But if I am the company, I probably care about the price of these donuts and how ordering 100 Donut Vault donuts versus Do Right donuts actually can be significantly different. So I'm going to put that in there as probably my third one, just because I don't see something that might be closer. The only other thing that if I was trying to account for like a person going to get these, I might care about number of locations and I might care about closest location, because that would impact, someone going 5 miles away to get these donuts. I think if y'all are remember correctly in the River North, you're probably gonna have something pretty close for each of these, right? For each of these donut locations. If you were in Schaumburg, location might be important, right?
Yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense to me.
Great. Are there any values here that I may be overlooking where you're like, this is actually really important? These three seem to make sense to me, but is there anything maybe I should be aware of?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I want to call out border radius because it is the one attribute that I'm most proud of sneaking into this little exercise. But that is definitely not important to include in your evaluation.
Is radius talking about the how far? Oh, you're
Like
just talking about border.
how circular the donut is
Got
in
it. That's fun.
like CSS terms.
Yeah, that's fun. I was assuming this is related to like the address or something and how far it is from the office. This is it's fun. I mean, pick on the person, that might be a very important factor. That's fun. Okay, cool. Great. So let's say those are my three values. So I've kind of done this piece here. Let's reformat this a little bit. I've picked these three. I've kind of looked at this data model. We haven't actually displayed these yet, but let's say we have, I have picked these. Okay. Kind of looked at this. This makes sense to me. These data objects are the same. So we verified that. We're not missing anything else here, as far as we can tell. Next, I think it makes sense to just try to get these to display on screen, which shouldn't be super difficult. And then we could start to parse out which bits of information we want from each of them. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do next, is just try to get, at least start with getting one of these displayed here, right? We get something on there. This is, I'm going to tidy up these. Okay. This is React. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, let's, ooh, we don't have my shortcuts. If I do that, nope. Okay. No, weird. Doesn't that seem like I should be able to click on that and it? Huh. That's right. Okay. I tell people this is why you shouldn't get used to having shortcuts, because you might not have them in an interview setting. Okay, so I want to pull in these various bits of data. I'm going to import do right, or I need to import this data object. The syntax on this, I'm going to butcher here, but it's going to be something like this. I'm going to import it from we've got default in here. I don't want slash to get out of this current directory, get into the data, and slash do right. I think that's what I want, but let's see. Yeah, I'm getting red squiggly line, import dot dot dot, come using TypeScript files. Yeah. Let's, okay. Let's see. I don't know if this is actually going to work, but let's see if this might print out here. I need to pull up syntax on exactly how to. I basically just want to print out this object, which I think I need to wrap in something like this. Not valid as a React child. Yeah, so I need to, I believe, map through this object if I want to print it out. If do resist, I'm going to do something like do right dot map. Let's see. Do right default dot map is not a function.
This might be controversial, but oftentimes when I'm trying to like see the shape of what I've imported or a prompt, like I'll just log it out. And that might be a helpful way to at least like see what we're working with here.
Yeah, let's see if this is even coming out correctly as I expect it to, right? Or if I'm even importing it how I'm expecting. Objects are not, is that because of this is still in here? Okay, I'm assuming there's a logger. Yeah, down here. Great. Okay, so that does, I'm pulling in that object correctly at least. I guess I could do this in different ways. I was thinking just get something on screen that I can just log this onto the screen right away, but I know I'm importing it correctly. I could make, it's been a while since I've made a, like a, I don't even remember what you call it, like a spreadsheet type thing. That's probably what I would want.
A table.
Table, there we go. Yeah. Let's see if there's, I don't know if I've ever actually made one in React. I don't know log rocket, but let's see. I mostly just want to know if there's specific syntax that React is going to. This looks like pulling in a React. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. I think I may if I had more time, but I think I just want to use.
Yeah, I think you definitely have the right intuition to reach for a library for tables because they can get pretty complicated. I think for the purpose of this exercise, we'd like to see you implement this with just like a plain HTML table,
Yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah. Let's see if I just get the syntax to make sure I'm not messing it up. I think it's just table and there we go. TRTDs. That's what I. It's been 2 jobs ago since I used a lot of or built a lot of tables, which was sometime. So I'm gonna copy this whole thing and then cut out a bunch of it and see if React hates any of this because I haven't done this in React specifically. But let's see. That's something. It doesn't. TR cannot appear a child of table. T body T third. Okay, so this might be the React specific stuff that could be here. Let's get rid of. Oh, countries mess this up. Let's try that. Okay, it doesn't like TD either. Let's replace that with thread. Again, I'm kind of taking stabs at exactly what the syntax is. It doesn't look like it loves this, but if after this quick attempt doesn't work, then I can figure out exactly. Okay, so React is probably different. React syntax.
I just sent a link in the chat. W3 schools is always a little hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just sent you the MDN link, which might help.
I do this thing sometimes where I hide. There we go. Table, thread, tr, th. Okay. And I'm hesitant to just pull this in, but let's see, because this needs to be okay. So it looks like it's still. Let's see what our error is here. Just clear that to make sure it's not from the. Okay, so we don't have errors. Then what might this be? Table two, two-dimensional table. Some without this is this. Okay, so yeah, we want some CSS in there. That's what I was missing. Let's pull this in. Nice. Okay. Great. So if design is not the focus, this is not necessarily super pretty. But we can make it look nicer if we need to, but at least we've got some type of table in here. I think we would want to center it, probably increase some spacing, make it look a little nicer, but we can I would say that would be a next step now that we've got a table on the screen. T-body.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
T-body table. Okay. Great. So should decide if it makes sense to do that styling or try to basically get some of this rendering in here. I think trying to get some of this into a table might make more. That's
Yeah,
gonna be.
I agree. Styling is not important for this challenge.
Yeah, I think the crux of this is API responses, and I've done nothing with that yet. So we want, is it another thread? Look at this doc again. Just trying to make sure I can figure out how to make this. That's the table itself. The thread, I believe, is this header or the T head. Sorry, the T body. So if I with 2 columns, but I want 3 columns. So I think I can. Yeah. Okay. So we just need to make another TD if I want 3 columns. Okay. Great. And I expanded this to 3, so that should cover all 3. Okay. So we've imported this. Let's just do the other 2 real quick. Don't. So we know we have access to all 3 of these. We don't care about the JSON. Just that, and then fire cakes. And let's just log all three of these. Make sure they're still showing up correctly. 1,000 log statements, but fire cake, donut vault, yes. Okay. Cool. So we've imported all three of those. We should at least have access to them. Now I need to actually it's probably React specific. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Let me just look at my. We've displayed. Create table. We have imported data. What was the other? We want to make data sortable. Okay, and these are my three. I'm just going to pull these. Something is really wrong. Is that
Yeah,
just from having?
sometimes Code Sandbox freaks out a little bit. Um, there is like a little refresh icon next to the URL. Um, not in the like preview, to the right a little bit. There's a
Oh,
you
right
go
here.
down. Yeah, sometimes that's all it needs.
That's a great error message. Something is really wrong. uh, okay, so I'm gonna want to loop through these and display them in some way. Really, the way I've set up this table now will need to be changed. Ideally, in our map or whatever, however I'm going to loop through these data objects, I want to just be able to pull or generate these right with the attributes that I want in them, rather than having this there and then trying to pre-fill them or to fill them after the fact. That
Okay.
might be a thing I would do with more time. That might be a thing we get to now. But I think this makes sense. The next thing I'd want to do is at least map through one of these objects and get the data printing on each of these. What's coming to my mind is like, do I know how to do this? Is if I have three different objects that I'm trying to work with, do I know how to map through all three of them to get different data attributes from each of them? I don't know if I know how to do that. How I would probably do that, at least my first thought process, is take all three of them and make one greater donut object, right? And then just in our map, we're gonna loop through these nested objects. That's what comes to mind, but there's probably another way to do this that easier than that. What do you think about that idea, putting them all into one data file? Is necessary or not?
I think combining them into a single file could certainly work. I mean, they're all the same shape, so that makes it a lot easier. You feel more confident accessing like the same property on them. Um, a sort of like shortcut for that could just be to do that, within this file itself.
Oh,
Combining them all into like a list.
yeah. That makes sense. I was thinking trying to do a lot of that mapping here, but of course I could modify these up here and then do something with them, right? I can basically pull out the values I want up here and then easily spit them out, right?
Hmm.
Or more easily spit them out down here. Uh, okay, so let's see. It might do right. So I think what I want to do now is at least see, can I go through and just get the three values I care about for these do right donuts into an object with nothing else? I probably the part of React that I end up doing a lot of Googling around is when I'm actually mapping through an object and then trying to spit out bits of information, the syntax specifically. So I feel most comfortable trying to basically get these three pieces out and then do something with them. I could probably just do that all at once, but it's less easy in my head to do. So I think, let's see, we've got these really nice docs. Let's use them. Specifically, show me to use map with React. It's really the same. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new one. I want to map. We have the thing. Yeah. Pull in this syntax. Okay, so we got do right, which is what we're mapping over. We have a value that is going to be working through. That value we're going to take and then do something with. I think we might need, if we do more than a one-liner, something like that. So if, what are the attributes I care about? It was average rating, flavors, price. Yeah, so this is where my map syntax is not great. In my head, I know I could do something like this, right? If value equals this thing, like basically we want to include it. That's not really good map syntax, but it's how my brain's working right now. If value equals average rating, it doesn't like.
I think it might be helpful to take a step back and think about like what is do right? Like what does that variable represent? What like data structure does it represent?
Yeah, it is an object. So if I'm necessarily do this as easily as I could in browser, but I could say, let's see, what was it? Oops. I thought I just defined it. Do right. Oh, maybe I can't.
Yeah, I
Do
actually haven't
this
tested this in Code Sandbox. Maybe that doesn't work. But I think like you're on the right track, right? Like you have an object and you can access properties on the object directly using the dot notation.
Yeah.
So I think for our case here, we really don't need to like map to the values. We can just say like do right dot average rating and have access to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I'm trying to get in my head, and I feel like this is easier um than how I'm thinking about it, is like if I want all three of these values, other than doing something um like this, I mean I could do something like this. I think to make it easier, I'm probably gonna do length as well on
Mm.
that price because it was just dollar signs, if I remember correctly. And I don't really care. I care the number of dollar signs, right?
Yep.
Uh, so if this is reading, every number, and then price, I should have access to like all three of these should work now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Nice. There you
length
go.
3, 18, and 1. So I guess I can do that. And then just pull these in. I was thinking there was a fancy way to do that. So there probably is that I'm not thinking of. But if I just want to get something on this table, we could say average rating here. Um, uh, what do we have? Number of flavors. Flavors. For the price is one sign low or is one sign high? More signs is more
One
money.
one is the lowest.
What is the lowest? Okay. Cost lower, for lack of a better term. Lower is like
Perfect. I know exactly what you're saying.
yeah, great. So then these I could just throw in here. I think I can just do this. Yeah. Okay. Like that. And then if we wanted to maybe recreate that for, was it the table added? Not, cool. So I can pull in these other two real quick. So I would think like this certainly would work if I'm just trying to get these out here, right? This is not a necessarily an optimized way of doing this, which is what was maybe I was kind of pre-optimizing for it before I was actually getting anything out here. But is there something else while I go through and adjust these that makes sense to you for us to do this in a different way? Something that's obvious.
Yeah, I mean,
Might
I
be
think in
missing.
terms of like the sort of like quick and dirty approach, you're only accessing this, you're only referencing this variable once. So instead of storing it as a variable, you could just access it directly in your JSX. Like on line 42, you have do right rating. That could be do right average rating, and so on for your other values. It would at least save you some typing. Um,
Sorry, can you repeat
but
that one time?
Yeah, so like you're storing the value as like individual variables, and then you're only referencing that variable once. So instead of doing that, on like on line 42, you could say do right dot average rating and just
Totally.
access the properties directly, so that you don't need to create 9 variables above your render function to get the information.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Why did this? Oh, I didn't have vault on the end of these. It was the issue the first time. Okay. Yeah, so basically instead of putting, let's see if I can do it for the last one. Curious, do I even need, if I've imported it, can I just call this dot average rating? Will that work? Oh yeah, okay. So I don't
There
even
you go.
need to define it at all.
Mhm.
So if we did, this will freak out real quick. Flavors and price. Flavors dot length. I don't think we need a price dot length. Okay.
Nice job.
So yeah, for consistency, maybe we would, make all of these the same, right? And probably, I think doing it without the variables probably makes sense if we're only accessing them once. I also think there's probably a way to like, I could, I could probably iterate through this in some way where this is all getting spit out dynamically, right? Instead of building this table, which is what I spent too much time trying to figure out early on. These are not sortable, but you tell me how much time we have. I think this might be, at least we've done this part, right? I think the last piece was.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty organic stopping point. If you have time, like I'd love to ask you like a few questions
Yeah.
about this challenge, if that's okay. Um, without like coding this, I guess if you could just maybe walk me through like how you might make this a little less like repetitive, a little more dry or extensible.
Totally. So the big one was like all of this code is just, well, apart from this piece, right? It's basically just recreating these values. I keep saying map, but mapping through objects. I'm basically iterating through this object or these objects and pulling those data pieces out. While we're iterating through it would be much easier than doing this. Again, what we've already kind of done here doesn't need to happen for any of these other pieces. Um, I don't know if it makes sense, but in my head, it makes sense to take all three of these and put it into one big object, or to maybe create that object here. If these are actually API endpoints, right, responses I'm getting, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do it all in one file, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't make the most sense, but we could shape that here, right? We could get all three of the responses first, await that, and then build that file, and then spit something out, right? Um, those are all things that come to mind as far as how do we make this drier, and I think that would cut down on, if it was generating half of these, that's a third of the the code in here, right? That would go away right away. I'd also probably, as there's like other improvements, like name some of this better, styling better. This stuff's still in here, which doesn't really need to be, right? But oh, a big one. I mean, this is React specific. I was really not thinking in terms of React all that much, but we could pull this out into a table component or something, right? Where it's just a table component. If we really got into the shaping of the API, you could even do that, right? Like API shape component or function or whatever we want to do. So it'd be two very Reacty things, and then we'd have one pretty line that just says, whatever it is, donut table, right? That we could use.
Yeah, but I think both of those are great suggestions. In terms of, thinking about, we talked about the sorting feature. Like, what else would be on your roadmap here? What other features or like what else would you add to improve this application?
Good question. So depending on how, assuming this is like a live endpoint, right? Updating it live or on some regular basis, right? Assuming that let's say they push out new donut information every morning, right? Make it a call at 6:30 if they push it out at 6 or 6:15, whatever it might be. So we can get live information and no one's sad when they show up to get whatever flavor of donut and it's not there. I guess just from a functionality standpoint, the number of donuts or number of different flavors is great if we are just looking to get a variety. But if I'm an individual using this, I probably want the actual donuts to see like what are those specifically. If I was working on the endpoint themselves, having some type of live quantity would be really nice, right? If I was actually like trying to build out a donut app for Do Right, so as I'm walking up, I can see, do they have any old fashions left, or should I go to a different place, right? Something like that. Those are the main ones. Apart from styling, we could probably make this look really cool and have some donut graphics or something. I think Do Right and Firecakes in particular have some nice designs, so I'll probably steal some of that, make it look nice, or steal something close to it.
Cool. Brendan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, maybe kind of following up on kind of the extensibility of the code. Like I know we didn't get to the sorting requirement. I guess in terms of like maybe just talking me through, what code you kind of have to add or how you'd have to restructure some of this current code. I know we kind of talked about it in the context of like the table row and rendering, but I guess kind of continuing on that train of thought, what sort of things might have to change to be able to like implement the sorting logic, kind of from like an architecture or like pseudocode level. If you could give us like kind of any thoughts on where you might go next with that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And what's funny is I've literally done this before. Like I've made a table sortable that wasn't sortable, and it's not in my head right now, but I believe I needed to, there was some properties I think I was able to pass in the pass on T body, or maybe it was on table that is like sort or sort by, and then we'd basically take into account like you can say a sort by descending or ascending. You could sort by alphabetical, and I think that was basically passing it on to the properties of the tables themselves. That might have been working with Bootstrap tables, so I'm not 100% sure if that was an HTML thing or if that was a Bootstrap thing. Again, if I had more time, I might use something else like React table, right? Having not looked at that at all, other than knowing it exists as of 30 minutes ago, that probably has some property on it where you can pass in how you want these sorted and what you wanted them sorted by. And what I've done in the past is made it so you can click on basically whatever this is, right? And that we'll do it by a sorting, and maybe we have a nice little up arrow or down arrow depending on what it's sorting by, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think like the big concept that would kind of unlock a lot of like the kind of drying up the code would be, thinking about those JSON files, as really elements in an array. Because I think using the array like data type probably would kind of give you some like sort of JavaScript functionality for free, in the sense of like there is a sort function available on that map as you mentioned earlier. So I think kind of going forward to enable sorting and kind of drier rendering, I think starting to evolve sort of the individual sort of JSON objects into more of a array, like an assembled array that you can interact with, I think would probably start to unlock a lot of the things you're kind of hinting at in terms of, oh, this feels repetitive. So yeah, again, if we had more time, it'd be, we could sort of explore that. But I think that's kind of the big concept that seemed to sort of unlock a lot of the things you sort of cited.
Yeah. Great. Well, cool. Any other questions for me on this specifically?
No, that's it for me.
Cool. Well, great. Well, thanks so much, both of you for being on the show, and a lot of fun. And whenever someone says like it's API related, I'm always like, ooh, it'd be interesting to work with APIs. It's really nice to have the response already there. That cuts out some of the complexity of this problem. So that's great. Anything you want to plug, mention here as we wrap up? And it sounds like LaunchPad hiring, probably continue to hire into next year, and lots of Rails, interesting Rails React work, but I'll let you give the pitch.
Yeah, we definitely have a couple open roles around the Rails and React, and kind of mentioned the Salesforce development as well. So I think one of the really unique aspects about LaunchPad is the ability to have an influence on the product as a developer, and get a variety of projects. And I think for folks that are really like energized by that environment, I think like LaunchPad's a really good fit. So I think if developers out there in current roles, or they're maybe coming off a bootcamp, sort of looking for what's next, and like that sort of environment is really exciting to them, I definitely recommend that check out the LaunchPad website, kind of see what we're all about, because I think in general that's usually a pretty good mutual fit when those sorts of things are exciting to the developers.
Great. From a recruiting perspective, when I was recruiting in the past, if I saw a maybe 2 to 3 year like individual go join a consulting company, like those are the people that we were like the most interested in, because they often saw like a variety of projects. They really learned quickly, and I felt like people went from like solidly mid-level to senior in a shorter time period than a lot of product companies, just because of the variety of stuff that they saw. So I always encourage people, if you're a couple years in, like it's a great thing to seek out.
For sure. Yeah, and I think Launchpad too, like, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but we do tend to do a lot of like greenfield builds. So that kind of gives a higher likelihood of getting to try something new, in the sense of like maybe even a new version of Rails, or new paradigms in React, versus always inheriting kind of a quote unquote legacy code base. It's like, you can't really upgrade this because there's so many dependencies, which is just the nature of code that's been around longer. So I think that's another kind of exciting aspect, is in addition to being able to change projects, usually those projects are generally like new code bases that give that sort of fresh start, where you kind of have lessons learned on the previous one that you can apply in pretty short order to new projects.
Cool. Well, great. Thanks so much for being on, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching the technical interview portion of the Professional Technical Interviewee. If you want to tackle this interview question, you can find it at github.com/professional technical interviewee. New episodes are released on the first 4 Thursdays of each month. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Dorsett or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. And remember, keep practicing.